everybody. Welcome to Far From the Tree with your hostesses. I'm Jamie.
I'm Tatiana.
We are a mother-daughter duo, and we are just talking about all kinds of stuff that whatever's up. Just never know. Might learn, laugh, who knows. Grab a beverage, join us, get comfy. Today, we're going to actually talk about people pleasing. That's a hot topic.
Sure
But
is.
I do want to do a shameless little plug for Talbot's Company. Throne. Thank you very much. It's backwards, but I have my tank top on because I'm going to go work out later. And I needed some workout gear. I can't wait for the tights to show up. We're going to see if they're squat worthy. If anybody knows what that means, it means your ass doesn't show. Okay. So all that being said, people pleasing. What is it? I suffer from people pleaser syndrome. I
Same.
don't know if that's a real thing, but I've decided that is a definite disease of mine.
We call it people pleasing recovery. Recovery from people pleasing. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
In recovery. We're in recovery.
I need medication for it. I'm the yes girl. Where does it come from?
It is a learned response to your environment as a kid. It's part of like emotionally scanning other people, the fawn response. So that's the appease response. So I'm going to appease others so that I can avoid conflict and or get my needs met. Usually it's avoiding something, I would say. At least for me, it was always avoiding the negative, avoiding the conflict, avoiding the yelling, not speaking up, not asking questions, because I felt damned if I did or I didn't.
Same. I had to, it's interesting because my father worked a lot. Your grandfather worked a lot. I mean, he had 3 jobs. At one point he was going to school, and I mean, it just seemed like he was hardly ever around. But when he was around, he and my mom are very different when it comes to parenting. He's the authoritarian disciplinarian, right? My mom was so laid back. She's parallel to the floors. So I'm like, no, just don't do anything too stupid and you're fine. And so when he got home, there was this clash that happened because my brother and I were able to, Jason and I were able to kind of do whatever we wanted when dad wasn't around. The cat's away, the mice will play. And then he would come home and it would be all hell breaking loose and there was yelling, and he's very animated, and all that. And also whenever I had any sort of emotional conflict for myself, I was sent to my room to self-soothe versus being tended, right? And so there was a combination of the two that was like, as long as I don't have conflict, as long as I'm the good girl, everything will be fine.
Yep, that good girl conditioning.
Exactly. And
Don't speak up for yourself. Don't be rude. Don't be angry. Don't be any of the things that a lady shouldn't be.
Exactly. Some of the pitfalls of being the people pleaser is that it's very hard for people to trust that when you say yes, that you genuinely want to do it, because you're always saying yes.
Well, it's a lack of boundaries. It's a lack of personal boundaries, right? Because if there's attachment trauma, which is where this would stem from, then there's some kind of, I don't want to say boundary trauma, but essentially that's, more or less what it is, where if you don't have that modeled for you, you're not going to be able to do it for yourself. And if you're constantly having your needs put down, not met, dismissed, then you don't know what it is you need for yourself because you have all this conflicting information. We were talking last night about, I can't remember the age that I did this, but I remember having the thought, and this obviously was in my 20s, but of, I am an adult now. And so that means I can have ice cream if I want to, at whatever time of day. I can have whatever I want. And this kind of immediate gratification thing started coming in. And we were reflecting on that last night. We want it now, 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 now. Whereas when we're kids, you have someone there, hopefully moderating for you what you're consuming, whether that's information, media, food, what have you, to give you some kind of structure. And as an adult, you have to find structure for yourself. So it's the same thing with boundaries. You have people telling you what they think is best for you, whether that's because it worked for them or it's the opposite and they want better for you. And then eventually when you get out into adulthood, they're like, haha, good luck. See ya. Have a good life. And you have to figure it out for yourself. If you didn't have that modeled for you, if you didn't have someone there saying, oh, you're full, that's okay. We'll save it for leftovers. No, you need to finish everything that's on your plate right now because there are starving kids in whatever country. And I paid for this food and I'm your parent and I told you so. So we're going to sit here. I'm modeling the memory that you have. So we're going to sit here until you finish all your food before you can get up and go to bed. And then you fall asleep at the table because you're not hungry.
You sit there for 2 hours, tucking it away in your cheek and then needing to go to the bathroom, you spit it out. Oh yeah,
Resourceful.
I've tried all those techniques.
Mhm.
Yep, I was that kid. You have to finish what's on your plate.
But I think that's also why you credited Lake and I with, oh, you're resourceful.
Absolutely.
Can't really be mad at you, can I?
That's true. I'd always appreciate that. How many times would I say, Lake is really good about negotiating on this? You know, you just found other ways around it. But how many times was it like, convince me why I shouldn't do this, and then I might let you remove all the reasons why I wouldn't let you do this, I'll give in. And you guys were pretty good at that.
I remember you grounded us one time. Oh, because we went to the next door neighbor's house on their little canoe, but we didn't wear life jackets, and that was a safety concern. And you said, well, you can't go over to your friend's house to play to do that again. And so Lake and I, it was summertime, so Lake and I were sitting outside on the front porch, and the girls were like, hey, come over and play. And we said, no, we can't come over, but you guys can come over. And so when we told you later, oh, our friends came over, you're like, but you're grounded, you can't hang out with them. You said, no, you said we couldn't go over there. Loophole.
I just have to say, I really celebrate cleverness.
Resourceful. It made sense as a kid.
Resourceful. Absolutely.
Anyway.
And this is, honestly, this is the gift. There are gifts of being a people pleaser. I'm not encouraging people pleasing to the default that I've had it, but there's gifts to it where it's like because you're avoiding conflict at all costs, you get resourceful. Right. There is a positive side to it, So the downside is if you betray yourself, if you betray what's true for you. Part of my practice has been to really check in and say, what do I need right now? What do I want? Why do I want it? Not just what do I want, but why do I want it? Because, you talk about adulting. One of the things that I often say is that just because you ask me a question doesn't mean I have to answer it. I'm an adult. I have agency to be able to say, I plead the fifth. Now it's not a good time. I really don't want to offend you, so I don't want to answer this question right now. Whatever. And so having that kind of mindset is helpful. But one of the things that I practice now is really checking in and saying, why do I want what I want? Because if I'm doing, it's like this yoga class I went to not too long ago, I loved it. The teacher was giving all these suggestions. And she said, but before you go into a pose, ask yourself, why? Why are you choosing maybe to do the headstand? Because you're showing off, because you're trying to be something that you're not, or are you doing it because it genuinely feels right for you? It's something you actually want to do,
Right. What is your edge?
Exactly. Exactly. And I'm finding, for me, speaking up for myself doesn't have to be combative. Right. We often think that it's like, well, I'm standing up for myself. It's like, wait a minute. Why are you? Yes, you're standing up for something, not against someone. I guess that's the mentality, but it just sounds so, I don't know, warriorous, like, standing up for myself. Well, maybe I'm just asking for what I need. And I'm just saying, like today, I just need some time to myself. I need some creative time. I need time to be bored. I need time to write. I need time. So I just need to not surround myself with people this evening.
Right. And that's actually honoring your personal boundaries and what you need. I remember it was when Oliver was visiting. I had just gotten off of work and you had invited us over for dinner. And what I really wanted to do was go and get tacos at the food truck. And I was so tired. And I said yes to going to have dinner with y'all anyway, because I knew you wanted us over there. And I was so conflicted. I remember saying, I don't really want to go, but I know mom wants us there and I want to see them. But tomorrow, what I really like to do is go get tacos at the food truck. And so I settled in that moment because it was not me thinking about my needs. And I remember that feeling of conflict in my chest and my stomach. And it would have felt better to say, can we do dinner tomorrow night? Because I would like to go to the food trucks tonight. Or even, could you meet us there?
Hmm.
And so now, yes, speaking up for ourselves is an incredible form of self-love and self-empowerment. Actually, as small as this is, doesn't make it any less powerful. So I'm selling some things on Facebook Marketplace, and I was very irritated with scammers trying to waste my time and trying to get over on me. And so this was the second time it happened. Not that the first time I gave in to anybody, but that somebody tried this. And I knew it was a scam. And I get back to the messenger and I was just like, how do you comfortably negotiate something like this with somebody? You don't. And all I said was, this is fake, don't play me. And they got out of the chat. And I was proud of myself for standing up. And I was like, wow, good job, Tatiana. Conflict. And that's not a lot of conflict for a lot of people. I'm sure a lot of people are like, girl, that's normal. Like, you don't need to take that. Right. Like, what are you doing? But I'm very conflict averse. And I have been increasingly more conflict averse lately. Not sure why. And so in doing that small thing, it reinforced not every interaction is going to be nice, kind, positive, the way you want to speak to people. Sometimes it's just going to be spur of the moment, how you need to say things. And not everybody deserves your grace. And I think that's probably the hardest part for me, because living in this therapy world full time now of like, oh, let's practice conscious communication. There's also assertive communication. And sometimes telling somebody to fuck off is a blessing because they need so that. Good. It does. You're scamming people. You're trying to scam people out of their money that they've worked really hard for. Like,
yeah,
that's gross.
Yeah, you don't get grace on that.
No. But, if you're like, hey, I mismanaged my time and I'm doing my best to try and meet you to pick this thing up, I'll work with you. I might be flustered that, yeah, you're late and you should probably have an earful for that, but I don't need to give you that. You already know you're late. You already know it's an inconvenience. It's probably an inconvenience for both of us that you hit traffic. The least I can do in that moment is say, it's okay. Thanks for taking the time. Thanks for paying me, not being a scammer, and have a good day.
Absolutely. Well, and you're leading over into another piece of the people pleaser, which is taking responsibility for other people being upset. We don't speak up and say what we need or what we want because we're afraid we're going to disappoint or make somebody angry. And guess what? We're going to. It's going to happen. If our agendas aren't aligned, if I want something, let's use the dinner as an example. If I wanted you for dinner, come over for dinner, and you said, no, I'd rather do the food truck, would I be disappointed? That might be a little strong, but I would miss you. I'd be like, oh, okay, but that's on me because I was attached to the expectation. I was attached to that outcome. And it can go into other toxic levels where it's like, oh, but you're my daughter and you should take care of your mother and make sure she feels good about herself, right? I mean, that's a whole other thing. But what's that?
It's a narcissist.
Yeah, exactly. But this is also where having a secure attachment in relationship can help if you find yourself in a people pleaser mode where it's like, wait a minute, if I can trust that this person loves me regardless and is understanding, gives me the grace, then I can say, hey, I'd rather do this. Can we take a rain check? And there's understanding there.
Right. And you actually read my mind on that, because that is the difference of the attachment and the response. If someone is predictable, I would say, in how they react or respond, then we have an ability to kind of move through those scenarios with ease. We already know, right? Like, I know that you will be receptive. It'll be okay. We'll find some sort of compromise or even ground, right? But for somebody that I just don't know, like a stranger, I can't predict that what is going to come of them. So for me, it's just avoid altogether. And that avoidance is also a response coming out because you don't know what you're going to get.
And it goes back to what we've talked about. It's because we don't have the tools to be able to meet that conflict. What if, and why do we automatically go to the fatalistic result, right? We catastrophize everything where it's like,
Yes.
if I say no, they're going to take a gun and shoot me, or whatever. And it's like, wait a minute, maybe they'll just go, okay, another time. Or, yeah, you're a fucking asshole or whatever. All right, that's not me, that's them. I look at people's responses as showing me data points of what's happening inside of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a lifelong practice of not taking it personally. And I
Right.
do have tools to be able to work with it and deal with it. So that's the gift. But I think, for anybody who's listening, watching, is that if you don't have the tools, this is where therapy, coaching, all of that comes into play. Gain those tools and use it, because when we are interacting with one another and there is conflict, for me, conflict is a tool of transformation and understanding.
Right.
And it's taken me a long time to actually be okay with conflict and welcome it.
You raise an interesting point, because when you say catastrophizing, oh no, they're going to pull a gun and shoot me. That's honestly where I go to is I don't know. I automatically go to we're going to end up in some kind of physical altercation. And when you said, I don't know if they're going to pull a gun and shoot me, what immediately came to mind was that instance when we were dropping you off at the airport. It was you, me, Lake, and Dad. And that guy did something, whatever, but Dad got out of the car and started yelling at this man for almost, I think, hitting you or hitting him, whatever. And I remember being so scared, like, what if this man has a gun and he's going to kill my parents?
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, it's a real thing in society today. Here in
Yes.
the US, it's a terrible thing. I mean, road rage, we know that that's been around for years. And I mean, there's always a risk. So again, it goes back to tools and how do you stand up for yourself without it compromising what you need
Right.
and showing up as combative.
And that is practice.
Right. And the tools that I use is introspection. So I check in with myself first. I pause. I get really centered and grounded. And then I talk about what's happening for me.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, what I'm feeling, I don't have the capacity to have dinner tonight. What I need right now is I need to be outside with these food trucks and having some tacos. Love for you to join me if you'd like. If not, can we do dinner together another night this week?
Right.
So if you were approached with that kind of conversation, what would it feel like? Would you go, oh, well, shit, probably not. I mean, there would have to seriously be something going on inside of you to find that combative.
Right. When I say combative, I mean with strangers.
Sure.
Like, if this were people I have regular contact with, friends, family, whatever, even clients, okay, I can check in, take a breath, because we're in a controlled situation, more or less.
Right.
Right. It's texting, it's Zoom, it's therapy notes, it's a phone call, it's whatever. But in real life, we're not always afforded the opportunity to take that breath. Sometimes it is the immediate fight or flight response that kicks in that says we need to do something right now. But that also goes to show that we're almost always perceiving threat from just about anybody or anything.
We're always this fight, flight, or freeze mode. The
Right.
reptilian brain is kicked in. So how would you, if you weren't in a high intense situation, call it that, with a scammer, if it wasn't like a nefarious thing, but you were interacting with a stranger,
Mhm.
How would you stand up for yourself or speak for yourself without it being combative?
Well, no is a complete sentence. No, thanks. Appreciate it. And keep walking, keep moving, whatever it is you need to do. If they're, constantly harassing you or whatever, you can restate, or you can take other measures. If you don't stop, I'm going to call the police, or I'm going to, phone a friend or whatever, but like, don't. But yes, if you're able to, like you said, take a step back, observe yourself, observe what you're feeling, take a breath, notice the sensations. Yes, a lot can happen in those moments for us to even, okay, now I have a clearer head, because I acknowledge my brain is trying to keep me safe. I am safe. This is just an unknown thing, but the unknown is that threat. So yes, can we take a step back? Can we take the breath? Can we engage in a conversation with a stranger? Our brain is, whether we consciously know or not, our brain is going to perceive those body cues, that body language, the verbal intonations, the very micro gestures in facial expressions, right? And energy even of what this person's intentions are going to be. So if we are tuning into those things, not ignoring our intuition, not ignoring our gut feelings, it also can inform how we respond. If you know, and you do, when you're being hit on and you're like, I'm not about that energy, you probably have some kind of preset response for that person or situation. And if not, you can probably easily find one that you can use that helps you get through that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just as an example. But if you also are seeing that somebody on the street is actually being belligerent or combative or aggressive, sometimes the best thing to do is not engage. It is to avoid. I'm just going to walk on the other side of the street. I don't need that. That's smart.
Yeah, for me, it's not about avoiding conflict altogether, or it's not about inviting conflict all the time, looking for it's really finding that middle ground of what is appropriate for the conflict and when is it not, right?
Mhm.
So, one of the other things with the people pleaser is, have you noticed how I've done this many times, and I see this in a lot of people pleasers, apologizing for everything. Always the I'm sorry. Hey, I'm sorry to bother you. Are you? How do you know you're bothering me? Right? Or I'm sorry, I just have one more question. Or I'm sorry, right? And it's that whole, the joke is it's the Canadian theme song. I'm sorry. Because that tends
Sorry.
to be sorry,
Mhm.
yeah. Right. So the people pleasers always apologizing for things that they didn't do
Right.
and
Well, a
taking
lot of,
responsibility for it. Mhm.
right. I think a lot of the time it's to get over whatever is happening, get over the conflict. Oh, let me just apologize for everything that's happening right now so we can move forward, because you're not going to apologize. And I'd rather just forget about all this because this feels icky. Been
Mhm.
there.
Mhm.
But that takes away the other person's ability to take accountability for themselves.
Right.
And that's doing them a disservice.
Mhm. Yeah, we're enabling. Then we're just
Right.
enabling the bad behavior. It's interesting. A couple weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, whatever, I made a pretty egregious error. I dropped the ball on something I needed to do in my role as staff director, and I wrestled with it for about 24 hours, 48 hours, and then I went to the executive director and I just said, I need to have a really conscious conversation. I apologize. I dropped the ball. I could give you all the reasons why it happened, but it doesn't matter. And what was beautiful was that, of course, her and I were talking about it. And she said, I could placate you, but that wouldn't serve you. She goes, I witnessed this. I accept where you're coming from and I appreciate it. But, yeah, you dropped the ball. I said, you're right. I own it.
Mhm.
And I appreciated that. I didn't want her to let me off the hook by saying, oh, it's okay, because it wasn't okay. I learned from it. I practiced self-forgiveness, but
Right.
You know, for me, what we're talking about is being okay with owning our shit
Mm-hmm.
and letting the other person be okay with owning it, not making it better, you know.
Right.
I think that's the thing that I have witnessed, that I will say it's become a pet peeve of mine when I get those messages, whatever, that start with "I'm sorry." Now, if they genuinely did something to me and they want to apologize for something, I get it. But
Right.
the initial of like, I'm going to set this up so that there's no conflict. How do you know there's no conflict? How do you know there is conflict? Am I
Right.
that kind of person? You know, then of course I go into did I not create a safe environment for this person? You know.
Yeah. The it's there's a meme on like sending professional email, some kind of etiquette of like, oh, I'm sorry for bothering you, and I'm sorry for asking all these questions, and really I'm just sorry for being alive. Like, that I was just
Yeah.
like, pretty much, yeah, that's how we feel in society, isn't it? Because we're given punitive childhood environments to grow up in at times, and then we're given punitive schooling environments, and then we're given punitive work environments, and we're essentially just like made to feel like we're fucking stupid our entire life, even though we're incredibly competent and incredibly genuine people. Can't, blanket statement for most of us. Not everyone is like that, of course, but why apologize? Also, like when your boss drops the ball, yes, you may not want to point out you fucked up, but there is a gentle way of saying you fucked up. This isn't on me.
Mm-hmm.
I did the best with what I had with the information I was given at the time. Oh, well, I told you I didn't have that information. Yes, no. You may have told somebody else. You didn't tell me. Or they didn't tell me if they were supposed to. I didn't get that information.
Yeah.
But going back to feeling responsible for others' emotions is a big thing I have been working on for myself, because that is something I have taken on a lot. And of course, it's going to be triggered when we're in a relationship. If they feel bad, our partner feels badly or angry or what have you, we either want to be a source of comfort, a solution, just go into fix it mode most of the time, or personalize that. Oh my God, I did something. But it's a very childlike state to say, I affected your mood. It's very egocentric. When we're kids, yes, the world revolves around us, and that's what we learn, right? We get our needs met because we are the world, which means when we cry or we're hungry or we want to play, everyone comes to our beck and call. And so when our parents are angry, when they split up, when they forget about us, oh, well, that's my fault. I did that. And so even still, when we get into partnerships as adults, we go back into that childlike state of, oh, I did that. And we rack our brains with what happened? What could I have done or not done to help avoid this situation or to make sure that you're okay? It's not our job. And most of the time it's not us. If it was us, we have to trust that our partner is going to say, hey, this really bothered me when you did X, Y, and Z. Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense. But otherwise, anger, disappointment, fear, rage, disgust, all of these things, they're allowed to feel because they're human beings. We feel them too. Why can't they feel them on their own? And we just hold that space for them. And so sometimes, most of the time now, that mantra of I am not responsible for my partner's emotions comes to mind, especially when they're in a less than happy place. I'm not responsible for your emotions. It is not my job to fix you. Ah, that feels good. Okay. Hey, babe, how are you feeling? Not good. Yeah, I can tell. Do you need something? Can I help you? Not really. Okay. You let me know if I can.
Yep. They're adults too. They're capable human beings.
Right.
And if they need something and you offer, I remember my partner had just a terrible week last week. And at one point, I texted him and I just said, listen, I said, you are having one hell of a week. If there is anything at all that I can do to support you, I genuinely want to. And, next thing I know, he let me know what he needed. So it was great, but it wasn't my job to make him better. I use the phrase, you can't feel bad enough to make the situation or the person feel better. Because then you're just jumping in the hole with them. Because that's how I see it. Like, you get into these moods, or you have a bad day or whatever, and you're feeling the negative emotions. It's like you fell into a hole. Well, if I'm walking by this hole and I see you in there and you're like, help, and I jump in with you, we're both stuck.
Right.
That made no sense. So I stand on the outside of the hole and I say, there's a ladder. Can I throw it down for you? There's a rope, whatever. What do you need? No, I need to stay in this hole for a while. Okay.
Cool. Do you want a shovel?
Exactly. I'm here. However I can help. I might beat you over the head with that shovel when you get out.
You want to keep
kidding.
digging yourself in this hole?
Yeah.
You want some food? You want some snacks? You need some water?
Right.
Some sandwiches?
Picnic. I'll go get the picnic basket. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think that's the empowering piece. Is we often forget, in relationship in particular, it's so easy to get wrapped or meshed into the other person, to think that we have to, that supporting them means we fix them, means we take over for them, instead of empowering them and bringing out the best in them. So
Empathy goes a very long way, especially for those of us that have trauma in our backgrounds. I would say the majority of us do.
yeah.
Empathy and patience.
Yeah. And not taking it personally.
Yes.
It's not about me. I mean, I looked at, like I said, with my partner last week, and everything that he had gone through had nothing to do with me. But I can tell you, old trauma went to, is he unhappy with us? There was a moment where those thoughts came in. I was like, maybe he doesn't want to be with us. Maybe this is too much for him. Fatalistic, right?
Right.
And that whole thing. And then I watched that narrative. I was like, wait a minute, this isn't about me. This is about me giving whatever he's asking for, what he needs. He needed the space to be able to process some things with the individual that he was dealing with, or whatever.
Right.
So honoring that and going, it's okay to have that space. I need my space. Because that's the other thing about people pleasing, is you often behave like the other. You give in to the other,
Absolutely. Well, I think, right, like diving back in that hole with them. But I think too that people pleasing and perfectionism, they walk together a lot.
They do hold hands together.
Because when you think about it, at least for me, if I am not perfect, then I'm not worthy of this person's love, attention, affection, what have you. And then now I'm people pleasing to overcome that because I've upset you by not having my work done correctly, or being home on time, or making my bed, or whatever it is. Or I had some kind of indiscretion in the relationship, and it's been years, but I feel like I can't recover. I'm not worthy of our future relationship. And it's just this awful tug of war. And like you said, it's sitting with that self-compassion, that self-forgiveness of, I messed up. I'm human. Have I learned from this? Yes. Am I doing differently? Yes. Okay, great. That's good. That's evolving. That's growing. So then what are you not worthy of now? Because that person is still around. They called you on your bullshit. They held you accountable. They challenge you. They want you to grow. They want to see you succeed. They love you anyway. They may not have liked you in that moment, or liked that thing that you did, but that doesn't take away from who you are as a person.
Yep. What you're pointing to is self-worth. And that is one of the key components of the people pleaser, is that lack of self-worth. And so, I mean, I've shared this multiple times, but in the religion I grew up in, it was, you are not worthy. You must ask forgiveness. You're nothing but a sinner. I've heard that from the very day I was born. I can't remember a time in my life when it wasn't part of my narrative. Right. So when you already are ingrained with this lowly worm syndrome, that people pleaser is your life jacket,
Yep.
So
It keeps you safe. Exactly. It's that trauma response of I must please this person so that I don't have conflict, yelled at, feel like I've been given conditions of worth or punishment or anything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like our time is up.
Yes.
We can continue, I know, this conversation forever, but thanks for this time.
Thank you.
And you have a new Instagram.
I do.
You want to tell
It
us?
is therapist_Tatiana. Tatiana's with a Y, not an I.
Therapist_Tatiana with a Y. I love it. So excited. And come find us at, where can they find you besides Instagram?
Psychology Today. You can look me up if you're in the state of Virginia and anything that I've said has resonated with you and you're looking for a new therapist, please give me a call and let's talk.
Awesome. And you can find me at jamiedawn.com. And thanks everybody for watching, listening. We'll see you next time from Far from the Tree.
Thanks, y'all.
Yeah, we're so afraid as human beings because we don't have the tools. We're so afraid of our emotions, and especially high sensitives, because they don't know what to do with them. And emotions carry the element of water, right? And so if emotions are coming in and they are overwhelming, it feels like you're drowning, or it feels like you're being swept away in a riptide, things like that.